All right, Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is the Tuesday edition of Vuka Nazo, your morning news analysis show. Welcome to it. My name is Sihle Ngobese. Remember, if you want to get in touch with us here at the BDL show, we have a website. Find us at www.bigdaddyliberty.com. There you'll also find out how you can support this channel with a monthly contribution and help us keep going and provide you this morning analysis every morning, weekdays at 7 a.m. Welcome to it. Let's get straight into the news. All right, we begin here this morning where a one Jacob Zuma, yes, that chap, Mr. Nkandla, well, that chap, Mr. Giggle a Minute, is not giggling at the moment as he finds himself before the Supreme Court of Appeals in Bloemfontein trying to appeal that judgment against him, which effectively ordered him back to prison. Now, you'll remember that that particular judgment stemmed from the Gauteng High Court Judge Elias Matojane having granted Zuma and the National Correctional Services Commissioner leave to appeal the ruling he had made in December last year, in which he reviewed and set aside the parole decision and directed that Zuma return to custody to serve the remainder of his sentence. Now, you remember that that whole fracas has stemmed from the fact that the Constitutional Court had imposed a 15-month jail sentence on Jacob Zuma after, basically for contempt of court, after he failed to show up at court on the, effectively was the state capture inquiry case that was before that particular court. Zuma displaying a complete contempt for the court and rightly was punished for that, only to find that in a 15-month sentence, he only served 2 months because, well, it seems, allegedly, a chummy of his, a one Arthur Fraser, who used to head up the correctional services, of course, granted him medical parole on dubious circumstances. It is that decision which the organizations DA, Helen Suzman Foundation, and the Institute of Race Relations, and I think AfriForum also, had decided to set, or rather to appeal that particular decision to put Jacob Zuma back in prison. But here's the bottom line of it all. If this country is to endure, if this country is to become a society that is actually defined by the rule of law and law and order, then even the more powerful to the least powerful should be equal before the law. Jacob Zuma should be no different to any citizen in this country who is before a court and a court makes a determination about them. There should be no special privileges. And I can tell you now, if we continue to have a society where there is the perception, whether real or not, that certain people get special favors and certain don't, then trust me, crime will never be eradicated in South Africa. All right, from Bloemfontein, I take you to Cape Town, specifically Fishoek. Yes, that sleepy little hollow on the south of Cape Town, unfortunately being rocked by an incident of police brutality. That is alleged police brutality by 2 police members from the local Fishoek police station. But don't take it from me. Here's a video of that incident that did the round on social media.
Stop it! Stop it! Leave him alone! Leave him alone! You're gonna stop it! Stop it! He's a bitch! What is he doing? Stop it! You are the police! What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? Stop it! What the fuck are you doing? How can you? He's hitting this guy.
What have you done? Did you record it?
He wasn't even doing anything. He was beating him on the ground.
Did you record it?
I just recorded.
Wait!
Leave him alone.
Wait! Go in the van. What happened? Do you know this guy?
He stays in the background.
Wait! Help this guy. I'm trying to breathe. Fuck it. Tell us you don't know some help.
What's happened?
There's more people coming. Guys, this is police brutality.
This is police brutality.
You're not supposed to hit somebody like this.
On the ground, and you're beating him on the ground. He can't even do anything.
You're not giving this guy. Let's calm down. First of all, you're arresting this guy for anything.
For what? I'm trying to get their help. To lodge a missing person.
Sorry, what?
I'm trying to get their help to lodge a missing person.
A missing person?
My girlfriend.
So why are they hitting you?
Because he wouldn't help me. And then I
Do
said,
you know the full story here?
In the video, you can clearly see these two officers wailing and really going in on this particular gentleman who's on the ground. I don't know what the circumstances are that led to that, but it simply is a bad look for a police officer to be using his baton like that on a guy who's clearly, look, unarmed, really on the ground, and in the grand scheme of things, dressed in flip-flops and hippie pants, is probably not the biggest threat to burly police officers like that will face on a regular basis. And of course, their conduct when the neighbors and maybe community members approach them and ask them for a bit of to show a little bit of restraint. Again, an almost bullying type behavior by them. And it's that behavior which is now subject to an investigation by IPID. IPID, of course, is the investigative police, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, who is tasked, that's the body tasked with investigating alleged acts of police brutality and misconduct, of course. The piece in News 24 paints a very grim picture around the conduct of the police, even beyond this incident, when the local community policing forum chose to step in to check on the welfare of this man. The News 24 piece saying the following. Following reports by members of the public of possible police brutality, 2 members of the CPF, that's the Community Policing Forum, EXCO, attended the station to check on the welfare of the individual concerned. It continued that the CPF was denied access to visit the arrested individual in the cells in order to establish the well-being. SAPS members on duty refusing to take social media posts and video of the incident into evidence, and physically ejected both the CPF members from the station. A complaint will be made, and we will continue to follow up on the original incident. Now, it's important to note here that the man in the video himself has opened up a case of assault with the intent of doing grievous bodily harm. And indeed, if one is to go by the evidence alone here, likely has a strong case against these 2 police officers. Guys, it's really a simple one like this one, that is. If police are to build credibility within the communities that they serve, then they have to be the sort of police force that is seen to be professional, visible, and of course deals with criminals and criminality, not with residents and law-abiding citizens, as I'm assuming is the case here in that matter. And I'm assuming this based on the accounts, because according to the accounts, it was that actual man who was being assaulted who had called the police in the first place. So once again, I'll repeat, I don't know what happened before this incident, but what we saw in that video is just not on. And those 2 officers should face the music. All right, from Cape Town, I take you lastly to Mpumalanga, where this story really should have you shaking your head in disbelief as to the scale of criminality and theft at times in this country. I take you to the coal heartland of Mpumalanga, where, as you'll know, a lot of our coal mines are based there and are often feed, if not the export market, definitely feed those coal burning power plants that Eskom relies on to try and keep the lights on, struggling at that as they are. But one of the reasons why they can't keep the lights on is, well, criminal syndicates have effectively figured out how to hijack, pilfer and steal thousands of tons of coal and sell that coal, meant for Eskom, for hefty prices on the international black market, excuse the pun, given the color of coal. But this is no laughing matter. I mean, we're talking of theft at a grand scale here. The article in which I found this in really had this to say about these, at times even sophisticated syndicates. The former operative explained their task would be to drive in a bakkie in front of a designated truck and activate a signal jammer, blocking the truck's tracker while it's being diverted to an alternative site, a black site, if you will. He would deactivate the signal jammer once the truck was back on the road with a replaced load. Now, in one night, almost 2,000 tons of RB1, that's a high grade of coal, was dropped off. To give you an idea, 2,000 tons fills about 65 trucks. Now, these experts estimate that Eskom pays between 400 and 750 rand per ton of coal, while the export price was about $344. That's 5,500 rand per ton. So you can see by these numbers alone here, this is incredibly lucrative. It's basically a sophisticated crime network which intercepts trucks that are leaving coal mines on their way to Eskom. On the way, replaces the product, steals the coal, replaces it often with rubble, rubbish, and other nonsense, which obviously damages the Eskom's infrastructure, their turbines and the like, or rather their coal furnaces rather, and the like, or alternatively just doesn't generate the heat required in order to burn the furnace in order to power the turbine. So it is a double whammy, one which affects Eskom, and really when I say Eskom, affects us as the consumers who need the electricity. All the while, these criminals are laughing all the way to the bank. Something has to be done about this, and indeed it possibly is being done. It has been identified as an issue because in that same article it goes on to say that Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan had previously said that law enforcement agencies had identified the mafia groups operating in Mpumalanga that had infiltrated the structures of legitimate companies to set up parallel operations in illegal mining and coal supplies. End of quote. Now, you've got to understand that this is not the only issue that Eskom faces insofar as, on the one hand, the pilfering and theft from its system, but also, in other cases, pure sabotage of the systems by people who are chronically dependent on the state-owned enterprise for their business. They would rather damage and destroy things in order to get the same contracts and tenders to either fix or supply for the replacement of things that they themselves had damaged. And numerous investigations are underway in that regard. And sadly, even law enforcement at times are involved in these incidents. But it comes back to something I'd shared with you already before when we looked at that previous story of the chrome theft, ironically in Mpumalanga, where a police officer with other assailants was caught stealing 65,000 rands worth of chrome and loading it into a police bakkie. I told you then what I'll tell you now. For as long as the state chooses to be one of the greatest players in the economy by way of the state-owned enterprises which are poorly managed, cumbersome bureaucracies prone to effectively devious-minded individuals who see how to exploit them, for as long as that is the status quo, then crimes like these will continue to happen. We've got to start seeing a situation where the state relinquishes control, relinquishes its involvement in the economy, and allows private sector firms to conduct business, where there is much greater incentive by private firms to tighten up their systems in order to not make losses like this. Losses, for example, that in this instance are incurred by Eskom, but really are incurred by taxpayers, where there are private sector people. This is the general rule. No one is as careful with other people's money as they are with their own. And this is why I would rather see the private sector, who are trading their own money in order to do these businesses, conduct this business and generate the service we need, which is electricity, coal, whatever the case may be, versus the SOEs or state-owned enterprises, which don't have the same incentive as the private sector. You fix this element and you'll fix this criminality. All right, that's it from me, folks, on the Tuesday edition of Vuka Nazo. Hey, let me know what you think of any of these stories. We always appreciate your feedback. Find me, of course, at www.bigdaddyliberty.com. All of our social media details are in the descriptor of this video. And hey, if you're watching this on YouTube in particular, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so that you're notified every time this show is up and running. With that being said, thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow, Wednesday, bright and early on Vuka Nazo.